I don't even know where to begin with this video. I love Soulcalibur. I got my first Soulcalibur game as a gift from a friend, and above all franchises, this game has transcended my history and my world. Only Soulcalibur fans get that joke. It seems really weird to me that nobody has really taken a shot at contesting Soulcalibur by making a quality 3D weapon fighter. Yeah, Tekken gets its fairly incompetent competition with the likes of Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive, Bloody Roar, but Soulcalibur remains untouched. It's super unique, the only big budget game of its kind, really, but where are the Soulcalibur fans? This is part 1 of my look back at the Soulcalibur franchise.
Transcending history and the world, a tale of soul and swords, eternally retold.
Look, I'm gonna be frank, I'm including this game as a formality. Think of this as the opposite of the Scarfulu review, because this is the one I hadn't played, and I'm glad. You know, some progenitor games of a long franchise are endearing and cool, or like they're rough around the edges but still recognizable. This is not a Soulcalibur game. And that's not some cheap shot at the game. Soul Blade or Soul Edge, as its arcade release is known, has different fundamental mechanics than the other games. Movement isn't even close to free. It's extremely linear, which thankfully its successors corrected. It's got the basics, horizontal, vertical, and kick attacks, throwing, a guard button, but without the freedom of movement, the game feels a lot more like Tekken. You can still dash and step, but no walking around. No running around the pool. Other sapling ideas include unblockable attacks, weirdly enough some kind of super move called a critical edge. Every character has this. It drains that sword meter at the top. It won't be seen again until the 5th game. You know, the one that sold really well. You can actually lose your weapon with extensive blocking. I guess they thought blocking was too good. So now this poor bastard can hardly fight back. I kinda like the meter management of using a super move, but having the potential to lose your weapon if you're not careful, I guess. A similar mechanic appears later in the franchise, but for armor instead. The game's not terribly easy to jump into, even knowing the other games, though. To sell blocking being suboptimal, they created guard impact and reversals, where you can parry attacks or straight up catch an attack and deliver one back. These are timed abilities, so you've got to be good to use them. Graphics are good for the PS1. The franchise's basic designs are implemented here. At least it all looks cool. All these classic characters are here, even Voldo. Fun fact, Hwang here only exists because when it came time for a Korean release, depictions of samurai were considered offensive in Korea. Makes sense if you know the history. So they made a Korean swordsman instead to replace Mitsurugi. You know, the one thing that stands out to me after a good playthrough is how annoying this game is. The computer's spamming attacks and I don't know what to do half the time. I can't step guard like I would in the others. I can't place myself wherever, so it feels like I'm locked into place and need the perfect move to push an advantage that I can never seem to push. I keep getting knocked down and the enemy keeps doing this ridiculous jumping stab on me. Oh look, I got to the end of Mitsurugi's arcade mode and got thrown into a bullet dodging mini game I lost in 5 seconds because I had no idea what was happening. Cervantes' sword takes up half the screen. This character is so stupid, and look at Li Long, he's hopping around like a human cricket. This game is a game that exists. You can play it, but why? Why though? Now this game is the beginning of Soulcalibur, and it's awesome. Soulcalibur struck into new territory for fighting games. Look at me, I'm playing Soul Blade and I can't move anywhere. What if I told you you could run in any direction you wanted to? 8-way run, the single best thing the series ever did. This is the linchpin. This is the defining feature. This is why the game is good. Not parrying, not the weapons, not the sick character designs, not the soundtrack, not even the intros. These games have amazing intros. No, it was 8-way run. Because nobody else did it. You wanna know what I'm talking about? Play Soul Blade, then play this, and tell me you like stumbling around like there's shards of glass all over the floor and you forgot shoes. The pure freedom of movement. It's like taking off a coat in the middle of summer. It's like a 5 Gum commercial.
How it feels to chew 5 gum.
Oh, fuck!
Stimulate your senses.
The developers, who also made Tekken, apparently thought, I don't know, maybe it's time to let players fucking move in our games. You tried moving in Tekken before? You don't just sidewalk and whatnot, you have to master this Korean backdash nonsense just to walk. It's like QWOP. I digress. Soulcalibur also stepped up a couple things. Sorry to any veterans for this, but Li Long out, Maxi in. In general, the game got a lot more stylized. It's not to say that the mostly realistic designs were bad. They're fairly realistic for the first half of the franchise, and I'm grateful for it. But the art direction started to get some legitimate spice from this installment on. This came out in 1998 in arcades. Can you imagine walking into an arcade, looking at this, and then you see this? And like like all good sequels, the mechanics ramped up in turn. Reversals are gone, but guard impact is here to stay in two forms, which provide different opportunities for punishing predictable opponents. Horizontals have a purpose other than getting ducked, because players moving around is so common with this shiny 8-way run system. Verticals eat through horizontal attacks and hit crouching enemies, and they're usually strong, but they're easily blocked for the most part. Kicks are usually faster than everything, and usually a low kick is a really good poking tool. Supers are gone, movesets are huge, but not every move is necessary to win. Playing the game comes down to three pillars: movement, blocking and parrying, and knowing which moves to pull out in which situations. Combos are also minimized, so you don't need to open up training mode. It's as easy as asking, what do I do after I knock someone down with Mitsurugi? I don't fucking know, double forward, A and B. Movement's so easy and the mechanics are so simple, the game evolves from trying to harness a raging bull of a gameplay system into a game of chess. The pieces are all there, you just have to use the right ones at the right time. The beauty of all of this is that it allows people who normally wouldn't play fighting games to play a competitive game. Because in case you didn't know, fighters are considered one of the harder genres of gaming to get into. And how could they not be when you have to memorize how every fighter in the cast fights, learn complex and sometimes frame-perfect combos, and I have human fingers, and what is that? Soulcalibur said no. Sit down and play a game. Grab a hot chocolate. Sip it slow, not too fast, it'll burn. Also, it's in a well-heated cabin in wintertime. I didn't mention before, but in Soul Blade, there was this Edgemaster mode where you went around collecting weapons and doing weird things to complete tasks that mixed up gameplay. This game did the same, you know, on top of the usual fighting game modes like Versus Mode, Arcade, and Training, and had the player again doing weird things, mixing up gameplay, etc. to unlock costumes and game art. It's nice. It's casual. But we all know it's about the killing. And that's where this game stumbled. The game is so fun at a casual level, but the competitive mode produced some interesting problems. Most of the characters have some super broken abilities. Also, ringing out the enemy is fairly easy in a game with a chunk of relatively small stages and large character models. This benefits some of the characters more than others. For example, Maxi was one of the better characters in this game only because, partially, of his multiple ring out options. Astaroth could do the same with a spammable bull rush. Even worse, Lizardman can knock you up from almost anywhere with this huge reaching launcher and then immediately ring out players. Seriously, look at this. Even with the ability to influence your character's air movement, dying to a ring out is super easy. The launching move is also safe, which means you can spam it with relative impunity, and it's super easy to pull off. Keelik has a bug where you can buffer in his stance while blocking, which allows him to straight up counter any move safely and for free, which lets him punish basically anything, even safe moves from the opponent. It's insane, given this technique is hard to do, but with practice it's fairly consistent. Soulcalibur 1 had a lot of potential, but it kind of let people down in the balancing department.
Transcending history and the world, a tale of souls and swords, eternally retold.
Soulcalibur 2. Is that the one with Link in it? There are some misguided opinions in the community about which Soulcalibur game was balanced best, even which game is the best. I'd call this the golden age. Let me try to conjure up some words, some feelings for this game. It's kinda like a really big yeah, that pretty much sums it up. This game did basically everything right. The roster expanded with interesting additions, including my favorite character, who they forgot in the 5th game. No Koreans! And it's not to say that Soulcalibur 2 is a perfect game, but for the franchise, it got pretty damn close. All kinds of unlockables and single-player content, the return of an old classic in shiny new clothes with Weapon Master mode, which is a narrative-based mode that, again, mixes up gameplay with unique challenges, and you can buy costumes and weapons. The weapons have new properties and are available in Weapon Master and the extra modes, so you can swing that giant, stupid, invisible sword whenever you want to. But they didn't forsake the competitive side, retaining the normal versus mode, far fewer overpowered abilities as featured in the original, and while tier lists have come and gone, and some notably strong characters exist, there are clear, demonstrable examples of all characters being viable in a tournament setting, even the shitty ones. One could argue that this is indeed the most balanced in the franchise, and I'm inclined to agree. And it's because of Soulcalibur's unique mechanics and a bug. Every fighter zips around at Mach speed. You take huge steps. Given weapons are long and it's punishable, but this is the freest the series has ever been. Character movesets are intact or expanded. The simplistic beauty of not every move being equally useful remains. So again, some characters can function well with only 10 moves. It's always best to know the full set, but choices don't have to be complex when compared to someone like Tekken's Fang, or Lily, or Nina, and these long-ass movesets, a tool for everything. But the mere act of playing them is a circus act. Not to mention, again, the combos are small. I swear the highest number of hits you'll be doing is 4 for typical non-maxi characters. Guard impact is easy to do, and it's strong in any character's hands. Not just that, but if you guard while you step around as opposed to walking, you can guard even if you're hit while stepping. Then there's the bug. 2G is a glitch where you press the guard button twice and are capable of guarding after a guard impact, so when you should be vulnerable. It helps stop the endless back and forth of guard impact that will inevitably happen in casual play. It opens up mix-ups where none would exist. Some people have argued that the game becomes turtly with the power of 2G, but all the elements are in unity. Defense is super strong, but you have to predict things. Movement's always strong, but you have to be careful. Offense is varied, but you have to outskill your opponent by knowing the range of your own attacks, mixing them up, etc. Watch competitive Soulcalibur II. The game is not very turtly at all. In fact, it's very quick compared to some of the later games. What's created is a deep, engaging experience built on a foundation of beautiful simplicity. It's something that other fighters consistently fail to acknowledge. That to get new players into your game, they actually have to be able to play it. Can you believe that shit? This is why Street Fighter is famous. It's deep and it's hard to play sometimes, but the core buttons are simple. The tools are all really fundamental, and it's easy to understand by watching. This game is, to me, the pinnacle of the franchise, but it also displays one of the franchise's biggest weaknesses, and my love for the game can't erase some of the developers' decisions. I prefaced this game with, "Is that the one with Link in it?" for a reason. I don't know of any successful game series that markets itself with other IPs, except maybe Smash Bros, and in that game, that's the point. This has bothered me for a long time, so sorry for the negativity, but I get why you do a guest character in a fighting game. Can you imagine if Link was in the game? We got it cleared for the GameCube, so it'd be easy. Hell yeah, man, sounds awesome. But bro, what about the sequel? I'm sure it'll be on the GameCube, don't worry, bro. Are you serious? So Soulcalibur 3 is only on the PS2? What the fuck? All 3 games had a different guest, and some less impactful than others. The Xbox version's Spawn was mostly impactless. He doesn't matter, whatever. Heihachi in the PS2 version is a simple crossover. Older kids on PS2 might play Tekken. Cool. The GameCube version sold the best. I wonder how that happened. Link is one of the most obnoxious blunders they could have made. Sure, on paper, it's a great choice. It pulled in the numbers, it raked in the cash, the world was their oyster. But selling the game with another piece of intellectual property implicitly devalues their own. It's a subtle admission that, yeah, our characters aren't that cool. You know how many people mained Link? And they were the casuals. They were the kids who'd never look up anything or try to get good. They'd pick Link and play Weapon Master and maybe verses with their friends. The idea is that these players would get invested because Soulcalibur is so cool. But when it came time for a sequel, Namco Bandai shat the bed and made it a PS2 exclusive. A whole generation of kids missed the sequel because they only had a GameCube, and they never recovered those fans. Some of us came back for the 4th game, but to this day, when I talk about this game, I usually get, "Is that the one with Link in it? Yeah, I played that game, it was sweet." Never played another one though. And I think that could have been a longtime fan. They dug a grave for their franchise right at its peak. And while I love every game in the franchise, the mistakes only pile up from here. Alright, that'll be it for this episode of KBash. Make sure you check out part 2, hopefully in the next 3 weeks, as we'll dive deeper into the downward spiral of Soulcalibur, my favorite franchise.